Welcome, one and all. This is the Peace Dealer, and I would like to express a special channeled message regarding sexual relationships with friends. I entitled this video Friends with Benefits because this is the current understanding we have with this. So, the thing with this message that is important to understand is twofold. One, this message is generational specific. So, it only applies to those who have Pluto and Scorpio and beyond. So, this is going to be more practiced and lived by those who are born after 1986, or even if 85 you have it. Pluto Libra, Pluto Virgo, this isn't going to really resonate with you because your generation had everything to do with revolutionizing relationship constructs and the actual real life we live as far as what's socially acceptable and what's not. This is actually why we have a lot of the problems we do now, because a lot of these lessons were not resolved, but they're actually coming into completion now. For the Pluto Libra, it's going to be more so in the next decade. So really keep this in mind, because the whole notion between understanding the occult significance behind having a fuck buddy or a friend with benefits will change your life, especially if you're born after like the mid 80s and you wonder why you're having more opportunities to sleep with friends when you're looking for something more traditional or you're looking for something more stable. Okay? The whole notion with sleeping with friends was not lost in us in ancient communities where we did not have husbands and wives. We lived as villages and communities where people would be encouraged to have a lot of sexual partners and have babies with a lot of sexual partners because they understood that it takes a village to raise a child. But of course, as we evolved and civilized and we started to live in singular household units, we now don't have the ability to utilize more of the cooperation that a neighborhood does. After all, most people don't even know their neighbors. So just keep that in mind, because a lot of the people who implemented this kind of like life we live will swear to you up and down that the life you're living is just not mature enough or is just wrong. For those of you who, because a lot of people who are Sagittarius and Aquarius, they get it. Sagittarius, Aries, Aquarius, Gemini, like they get it. Okay, even Libra, and some Scorpios. Like there's people in every sign who get it, but this is very much so championed by Aquarius and Sagittarius. And the only thing that is evolving is this concept. So especially once Saturn gets out of Sagittarius, and Lilith moves into Capricorn, you're going to have a greater opportunity to develop healthy sexual relationships with friends. And this is why I say this isn't going to, like, people who were born before the 80s could practice this, because especially if you're awakened, you're going to find this is easy to implement and this will make a whole lot of sense. But if you're averse to it, you're supposed to be, because specifically, all right, like early 60s into late 70s, mid 80s, that generation was supposed to institute courtship and to actually date people and to actually understand people before you now get into more intimate sexual connections. They didn't have Pluto and Scorpio. All right. This is where this kind of trips us up, because especially with Venus and Scorpio, people don't know Venus and Scorpio can only really connect with someone through the act of sex. So this makes things very difficult for them because they can't just have sex with everyone. Okay. And a lot of people like to sugarcoat Scorpio. Stop sugarcoating Scorpio. Scorpio is that good, nice sex that just bonds you on a deep, intimate level with someone else. And this sex does not even have to be physical intercourse. That's what it teaches you. It can happen on a more mental, emotional plane that just vibrates on a being and level of existence that's beyond you. You wouldn't understand that though, because our generation's pineal glands are getting decalcified and we're being fed a lot of crap that doesn't allow us to understand that we have to control this sexual energy. If you're a Pluto and Scorpio or a Pluto and Sagittarius, you need to stop listening to these people who try and limit and block your sacral and root chakra by having you feel shameful and guilty for expressing your sexuality. This is deliberately programmed to suppress you by people who were suppressed. So the only reason why you're getting suppressed by these people is since they were old, since they were babies, they were deliberately blocked from expressing what they express. You think they're not as hip as us? We have a lot more freedom because we're starting to awaken to these concepts at a deeper level as we're supposed to. They didn't have that luxury. Very prevalent people who were psychic in the 60s and 70s probably had to get admitted. They couldn't open up a YouTube channel and find their tribe. So you also have to have forgiveness and compassion and understanding where things kind of led. But I will say the whole notion of how we treat friends with benefits and the F-buddy concept is not as pure as it should be. And this goes because people still don't care enough about each other. A lot of people have acquaintances, but they don't have real friends. So I'm not saying that you should go out and have sex with acquaintances. You, unlike the old generation, which wasn't smart to do back then, you want to have a friend you have sex with before you even decide to marry them, or before you decide to go steady with them, before you make the decision to actually, be a more consistent presence in their life. Make sure you develop a healthy sexual relationship with them. It's going to be different because this culture has seen sex as taboo instead of sacred. So this is where the guilt and shame come, which stems from the Inquisition and which stems from generations of people literally being killed if they had sex with someone they weren't supposed to have sex with. Pluto in Sagittarius is sexual freedom. So know if you're born in the late 90s and you're very promiscuous, that is not a bad thing. You're supposed to be promiscuous. You're supposed to explore adventurously your sex. It's not going to make sense to Pluto Virgo because it squares them. They're going to look at you like you're just crazy. It's not going to make sense to Pluto Leo, okay? The people born in the 50s and 60s, they've had their time. Stop letting what they say block you. You're supposed to teach them with your actions. And they're not even supposed to teach them. You know what I'm saying? Their time is basically done. I'm not going to lie. Like they're getting ready to now shift to the realms of higher consciousness or the afterlife. If we're just going to be super real, what you need to understand here, especially for those of you who really struggle with being celibate, not everyone is supposed to be celibate. I broke this down in a live reading, sorry, I didn't break it down, but I ranted about it in a live reading. And I just want to reiterate this in a sense where I didn't mention last time. There is a right way to do celibacy. So some of you are celibate and you have every right to be celibate. This is your decision. All right. This is just like people who think they're witches, but they weren't really born into the whole craft of witchcraft. You can't just turn celibate. This is something that you decide to make as a sacrament with God. Like a maiden, if a woman walks the path of a maiden, she's going to be celibate to conserve her energies for God. You can't just decide, I'm not going to have sex anymore, so I'm going to be celibate. That's not wise because you don't allow your sexual energy to release, and now it's congested within you. Ideally, it is important for you to have sex at least once a week. Some of you may think that's a lot. It's not enough at that. And I need you to understand, I'm not just some horny little dude saying this. I'm not just some dude with this Mars and Aries encouraging people to have sex more. This is something that has to actually be a part of your routine. But if it takes you a long time to find the right partner to do this with, that's good. I'm also not telling you to rush into this. And this is where a lot of applications of having friends with benefits is not, a lot of you wonder, well, it doesn't work because somebody catches feelings for another. It's just kind of messy. Well, number one, any relationship you're in is messy. So that's just a horrible excuse. It actually works when you do it right, when you're actually that person's friend, when you actually care about that person as a friend. A lot of people have sex with acquaintances that they don't even know. That's not true, you know what I'm saying, friends with benefits. And the true term of it is not called friends with benefits. And it's not called F-buddy. These are kind of distortions of the true principle. You have to be comfortable having sex with a friend before you even get more serious with them. This is why Scorpio is next to the 7th house. Does that make sense? This is why 8th is next to the 7th and Scorpio is next to Libra. And it's not until Capricorn that you establish yourself to the world as a partnership. But sex comes before that. Do you feel me? So the reason why this whole sex before marriage, no sex before marriage thing, or really kind of holding back before you sexually express yourself. This is fear mongering, and this is also blocking your sacral and your root. Have discernment. Don't be out here just sleeping with anybody. But when it feels right, some of you have opportunities to have sex with friends. And just because you have this label there, you're trying to kind of control what you are when sex is just supposed to be a sacred connection that aligns you with another person so that you can bond more intimately. Soon, when Pluto's in Pisces and these young kids finally understand that, you know what I'm saying, what you call promiscuity is really just more a need to connect more divinely, you know, with spirit through another person. But I just wanted to drop this message here because some of you get it, and you're letting other people who don't get it stop you and block you. This isn't for everyone. All right. Some people with Pluto and Sag and Pluto Scorpio will still opt to be traditional, and you have every right to. This is your life. Okay. But for those of you who get it, I'm telling you, like, and if you really like someone, you want to make that person your girlfriend, boyfriend, if you want to date them, or if you want to get married to them, like, make sure you develop a healthy sexual relationship before. Okay. And I mean, this isn't different. This isn't so different than what most people are doing, but it's just important to make sure you don't blur lines and you don't let false labels as, oh, we're just friends, get in the way of doing why maybe the universe attracted both of you together. And this is going to involve ridding your ego of not taking advantage of opportunity because you don't like how someone looks, because you don't like someone's beliefs. It's not about that. It's a spiritual union between souls. When you really see it as it is supposed to be, as something sacred instead of taboo and something to get, you know, your pleasure off, this is going to help highlight this. Some people really still don't get that. And it is what it is. Not everyone has prominent 12th house placements or 8th house placements that can even sense you or key you into that. But yeah, once again, wanted to leave you with that message. What our generation is going to do, especially past 2025, when Pluto goes into Aquarius, is we will now start to develop a conscious awareness of how you can develop healthy sexual relationships with friends that you're not even married to, that you're not trying to be codependent on because you feel like if that person loves someone else, they no longer love you, which is just inherently selfish. That's not real love. That's selfishness. But regardless, I hope this spoke to some of you, and I'm going to go back to working on the monthly horoscope. So y'all stay blessed and